It's draft time. You know what that means? It's Joel the Mole.
Now Majak Door. He's got the runner inside Majak. He tried the shimmy and the sidestep. Use the 15. How good is that?
Welcome back to Further North, everybody. Draft time. Now, this is North Melbourne at its finest. Draft time. We've always got high picks, you know, where there's always some prospects to look for. And the draft is like 3 weeks away. So we're kicking off draft season, baby. And you know who's here when it's draft season. The number one draft man in the country. I think you've almost got Toomey covered, mate, to be honest. In my world, you definitely do. Joel the Mole is back. How excited out of 10 are you for draft season, mate?
Oh, 10 out of 10 at the moment. It's very exciting times for me. Like, you know, you get to look over all these potential, you know, you get to play Moneyball for a little bit with in your head. You get to comb over all these juniors and try to find the gold. It's a very exciting time to be a footy fan, to be honest. Probably my favourite time to be a footy fan at the moment.
Yeah. Well, are you anxious for the day that North's at the top of the ladder and we don't have as many high draft picks?
Oh, no, because there's always gold that you can get further back. I mean, that's when the real stuff comes in as well.
Lucky was pick 73, so you never know.
Yeah, Cherry was a late one as well.
Yes.
Zerha was a rookie lister.
Zerha was a rookie list, yeah. Well, this is exciting stuff. So, look, we're going to have a little chat about what we predict North's draft strategy to be, some potential moves they could make, and a little bit about how we think they're going to go about it. And then the second half of the pod, we're going to get into individual players that we think, mainly Joel telling me, but, you know, players that we think are a potential to land on North's list next year, which is very exciting. Straight off the bat, a couple of things, a couple of housekeeping issues here. Number one, I apologise for saying we had 5 list spots. I have learned we have 3 list spots. We kind of have 5 when you include rookies, but I've learned how the rookie contracts aren't exactly available for draft or national draft players and free agents to be picked up. So we kind of have 5, but we do have 3 for the draft and for free agents to pick up. So that is my bad. I have learned. I'm coming back stronger. Don't hurt me, please. I'm trying my best. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. I need to say this at the start. I love the people, love the YouTube videos, and I need you guys. If you want to support the show, the best way to do it is to subscribe, like the video, put your comments down below. If you guys like any prospects, what positions do we need? What do you think we should do with our picks? I want your comments down there. I'll do my best to get to those. And lastly, the Footy Fan Network stuff that we've been talking about on here is out. Please follow along the YouTube channel and the Instagram page. I'll be featuring on there. Marnie's going to be around that as well. And just for general footy chat, a very biased view, but we all come together and debate whose club is the best and North's point of view compared to Collingwood's point of view on the same issue. It's really, really good stuff, and I think it's going to blow up big time eventually. So please get around the Footy Fan Network, YouTube. They're on the podcasting platforms as well and the Instagram. Okay, housekeeping done. It's North Melbourne time. You're the list manager, Joel. You're Brady Rawlings right now. You're my Brady Rawlings, which is probably the biggest compliment you could ever get.
It's something.
Well, it is something, and that something is, how do you think, from your opinion, right? We're just debating this. How do you think North are going to attack this draft? So we've, I might read out the picks we've got because this will set the scene here. So obviously we made the trade with Richmond last year. So we currently have pick 25, 26, 46, 57, 82, and 100. Can we find a Nick Larkey with pick 100? I'm excited for that player to probably not be drafted. How do you think we're going to attack this? What's your insider knowledge or your draft heavy brain opinion on how we're going to play this draft?
We're in a very interesting spot in this draft where the picks that we have with the talent pool that there is, I don't think is actually too bad a spot. There's a few good speculative picks around there, and it gives you a real good opportunity to get a slider. Just for those who are, I guess, watching at home as well, the important thing is the first night is going to be night 1. Obviously, we traded our first pick, so we're only going to be having the second night is going to be our big night unless we trade into the first night. But we're very, very likely with where Brisbane's pick is before us, because they got that traded to them, that we're going to have the first and second pick of the second night, which is a very good spot to be, and it gives you a night to sort of go back and not have the time pressures. It also gives the opposition and people around the draft to come to you with deals as well, and you can actually have a bit more time to work. I don't think we necessarily will trade out of the picks that we've got, but it is worth noting that it is it's not a bad spot to have. You'd probably almost prefer those picks to, the 2 or 3 last picks of the night before. It just gives you more time and less time pressure, would be the way I describe it. So I like that spot that we're at. In terms of what we're going to do with our picks, though, which is the really, really fun part for me, we've got a few list holes that we've obviously looked at covering, and I think that's probably what we should start with. We've neglected our key positions for a while now. So I reckon one of 25 and 26 is going to be a key position player, whether it be forward, back, or slightly ruck forward, which I'll give a couple of names for in a little bit. Or I reckon our other one is going to be either a tall winger or a tall inside mid or a mid defender / winger. So that's what I'm thinking we're looking towards at the moment. What do you think we'll go for, Josh?
Well, look, key position, definitely. I think that's an absolute must. And for me personally, I think the forward options need to improve. I love, I've been a defender on North to a degree on the trade that they made last year, and I'm not trying to convince anyone we won that trade, but I think it's important to note that on paper, pick 3 for pick 27 looks bad, but there's a lot of context around that. I mean, as far as I know, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think Whitlock would be arguably a top 3 key position player in this draft coming into this year. And if we were entering with pick 3, which was going to be pick 5, 6, if not maybe to 8 or something like that, we're probably not taking a key position player. I think Carlton have a good key position player, and there's Cooper Duff Tyler in there, which will go early on before we would have been able to pick, I would assume. If the Eagles don't pick him up, I think they're mad, to be honest, because they need that type of player. And then Matt Whitlock would have been right there with those guys. So I think it's not a bad trade for what North need. If North was in Richmond's position that they just needed to get talent in, I think it's a crazy idea. But with the amount of talent we've got, I don't mind what they tried to do because Whitlock was that guy that was there and they wanted. So even though that being said, Whitlock playing a lot of forward back half of the year, Will Dawson down back, I think key defensive options are sorted for next year. A ruck forward with more forward craft or just a forward would be the one I would go. We've got 5 pretty capable key defenders. We do need to upgrade the top end of that group, but we've got enough on the list to get us from bottom 4 to 10th to 12th on the ladder. And that's the next step to take. So I think taking another key defender would be a little bit silly personally at this stage. I think the way we upgrade our defense in the future is recruitment. Someone who's ready to be the number 1 or 2 guy. Then looking at what we want to do, key forward, Trembath is there, but Darling is obviously not getting any younger regardless of Trembath. Whitlock potentially, even though he has the ability to swing forward and back. If we're taking key position and it's not a forward, I'll be a little bit confused. We need a key position forward. Interesting what you said before with looking at like a taller inside mid or a taller winger. I know we've got a lot of half backs we're going to talk about as well. Interesting that there's no small forwards down there for you, no little buzzy crummers. Do you think in the draft that's maybe lacking in the area that we've got the picks in? Is that why maybe you haven't pointed out that position in particular?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's probably lacking around where we are. There's a few options, but I think we've probably giving a bit more of a space to the other players in that area is my gut feel. Like, I mean, we've still got JK, we've got Hanson Jr., we've got Cooper Harvey, we've got Paul Curtis. These are the players that are sort of in that role, bench, and I think we're giving them a bit of time and space and then going from there. It's my daughter running around.
She's excited about the draft, mate.
Oh, she's very excited about it. But yeah, so those kind of players, and I just think with where we're at, we really need to draft a goal-kicking small forward, in my opinion. That's something that we really need. A lot of clubs around the league have it. I just don't see us targeting that this draft. I think they're more what I would consider like your decorations on the cake. We need to still be having the actual build of what a good list is.
Yeah, no, for sure. So there's a lot of different options that we can sort of go with in those 2 picks. Do you think, before we get into maybe more players and positional stuff, do you think there's any chance we trade this pick up into the first round?
I think marginal. Like, I just don't see, like,
Gold Coast has been touted a little bit, and
I mean, to move up into like the teens doesn't really interest me with where we're at.
Yeah,
like, because I think there's players, it's fairly even across the board with where we are, and if we had to trade 2 picks to get one that I just don't like rate at that same talent level, I wouldn't see the value in it for us. I had a really interesting trade proposed to me by one of my mates when we were just talking about it, Mick, and he was saying, if we traded our future first and our 2 picks for picks 9 and 11 from Carlton, for example, is that something that we would consider? And my personal preference in that situation would still probably be no, but it would be an interesting spot to sort of get to with those picks where you could actually, because it serves Carlton's needs of getting into next draft where they've got Walker, and we've still got picks next year, but I don't think they're going to go quite as high. I mean, Walker's expected number, the top 3 prospect at the moment, a top prospect at the moment. But, 9 and 11 in this draft, I just don't rate to what I think the similar position might be next year if we've played a particularly good season. So it's just an interesting one. Like those are the kind of trades where you might see some action, but to move up to the teens would be pointless. I mean, the only players I'd really want to move up for is like that trade would be a bit more interesting for me, but otherwise I just don't see. Yeah, at picking the mid-teens, there's a chance we'll get just as good players or just as good projects a bit further back.
Yeah, okay. And do you think there's going to be any shuffling for North trying to get more picks potentially in next year's draft with, I think, Harris coming through and potentially McCartney? I think Shannon Grant's son is coming through in that draft as well. Are they all next year?
I believe next year it's Harris and I think McCartney as well. McCartney, I think, has the choice between us and the Giants, which is worth a watch, obviously. Harris has got a bit more. I like Harris. I think he's got a little bit there, but McCartney's the better prospect at the moment. We'll see how they go over the next year. And obviously they would want to nominate. He's a key position forward as well, McCartney, which might also play into a bit of what we look at over the next 12 months, depending on what we think.
Do you think there's any chance of trying to move for picks in that sort of draft there to be able to get a hold of those guys, or no?
Nah, probably not as much. I mean, we'll sit there with our first 2 picks. I'd be surprised if we moved them as Gold Coast pick in the middle, at the middle of the teams. Just I don't think that'll interest us too much for what I don't think the talent jump is that great, and I think you've got a bit more opportunity to get a better player. Some of our back end picks, I think we've previously done that where we've traded out and other sides have used it to move up, but I don't think that many picks are going to be taken this draft either because it's not a very deep pool. Like last year, there were some very good players that went into the rookie draft. This year, I just don't have that same sort of thought pattern with them. Yeah, I just don't rate this draft as highly at all.
Yeah, okay. So looking at the draft then, we've mentioned small forward and key forward. They're probably the 2 biggest glaring holes I think we can all agree on for a draft prospect. You mentioned a bigger body mid, a taller winger, and some half-backs. Just explain maybe your theory behind recruiting them, because I look at half-back and I'm like, how are we fitting? How do we need more half-backs? With so many players in that position at the club, that albeit like McDonald is getting a little bit older, Goda's health can be up and down. McKercher and Fosh, you'd say, move into the midfield in time. Is that more your thinking there, or do you think there's still a spot to be had there, and then maybe just touch on the winger and the inside mid?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, definitely with our halfbacks and that, Goda I really, really rate and love. I just think, his body has to get right, but I wouldn't be putting any, big stakes in that at the moment, obviously. Archer, similar, just been a fairly bit injured. Almac is getting towards the end and slowing down. I think we can improve on that.
Your man Darcy Tucker's not there either, mate.
Darcy Tucker's not there. Bergman's gone as well.
Yeah, Bergman.
So we've lost a lot in that position. I think in the back half of last year, we were really lacking in that area. Hardiman's more of that coming off the halfback, less defensive-minded for me. He can defend well, but he's going to be – you'll want someone equivalent to him on the other side, in my opinion. I don't like having McKercher and Daniel off that. I think we're too small when we do that.
Yeah.
And I think Kircher's moving into the middle. That's where he's going. Daniel's going to probably keep that role for a bit longer, but ideally I would like Daniel long-term replaced by a better defender long-term. And you have to look to the future with that kind of stuff because we don't have that at the moment. So that's the kind of thing. And the taller winger, the opposite wing to Stevens has always been a bit of a struggle for us. I'd like someone who you can kick it long down the line as a bit of an escape hatch. I really like that Ollie Dempsey sort of build of player.
Mason Wood, mate. Get Mason back.
Well, Mason's been playing that role well at St Kilda, I think. But yeah, Ollie Dempsey's one I would love to see Zane with a full preseason and fitness into that role as well.
Jai Simpkin touted on that wing as well.
Jai played
Not
really
that
well on
player,
that.
Though.
Yeah. But yeah, just a little bit of that height just for that long escape and someone that causes troubles when they float forward, and defensively when they float back, they can sort of be intercepting and punching. That's the kind of player I like in that role, and I think we're really liking that. And that big-bodied inside mid. I mean, all of our mids are 185 centimetre-ish, which is what the AFL likes at the moment. But I'd like someone that can either stop there or can be a physical presence there at some point.
Yeah, okay. And inside mid, do you think with Phillips going, we need a little bit more depth, especially in the twos? I mean, there's not going to be many AFL listed midfielders playing in the VFL to come in next year. Do you think that's maybe some depth, like an Urquhart type, that we could pick up to play twos and be caught up to the ones?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Because like Phillips, like for those who watch the VFL, Phillips was actually really stellar in that inside mid role in the VFL. It was just obviously he's got a lot of people ahead of him, but with him out and when he wasn't playing those games, it was often like, I mean, Geordie Payne actually started playing a fair bit in the middle as well. We were just really lacking that. We're lacking those midfielders in reserves, which sounds like a really weird thing to say considering how many midfielders we've drafted, because all of the players that we're drafting are playing immediately, but then they're not playing necessarily in that midfield role. They're playing off half back, they're playing off half forward, they're rotating through wings and that kind of stuff. So we've got a lot of talent that's been moved to other spaces, and I'd like to see, like I said, a big-bodied mid for me would be someone that I could, see us potentially, or a big-bodied defensive mid, someone who tackles with a fair bit of aggression, just to complement our, explosive mids that we've got a fair few of as well.
Okay. Any other positions you can think of that were like, that nippy little lockdown defender, anything like that out there? I mean, look, we did a pod with Chief. Seamus Mitchell, obviously, is someone who had whispers of coming to North before, is now a free agent. I mean, really quickly, we covered this in the last pod, but do you think we'll sign a free agent, or do you think we're just going to go in and get young
I think
kids?
we'll take 3 picks at this draft, and I think, I don't see necessarily us taking anyone. There potentially, when it comes to the preseason draft, we might get someone into like a rookie list or something, but I just don't see, or we'll get someone into another space, but I just don't see us necessarily getting anyone in. I think where we're landing our picks, we can take a fair bit of good speculation with some of those picks. But, I think we'll take our 3 picks, and I think that'll be us for the night, on the second night. That's my gut feel. I'd be surprised if we moved up, and I'd be surprised if we, unless, you have a really good deal. The only players I'd honestly be trading in for this draft for our list is a Xavier Taylor, a CDT I would really like on our list, and maybe a Schubert. That's the only ones I'd be sort of trading in for. Otherwise, I wouldn't be trading into this from using future picks or even the picks we've got. Maybe Farrell as well I'd be trading up for. But other than that, I wouldn't be trading up with our picks. So I'd be sticking where we are and being pretty happy with it.
Ari Schoenmakers is a free agent as well. He's out there, someone that you talked about potentially having a look at. I mean, you talk about that bigger bodied, half back to winger. Do you think, a 20-year-old as well who was a decently high pick? I mean, is that someone you'd want to have a look at as well?
Oh, he ended up going very, very late in that draft. And
did he?
Yeah, the reason he went so late in that draft was question marks over personality is the term I would use.
Yeah, actually, which you talked about. He was touted as a high pick, though. I think that's where
he's actually a very, very talented player. That's not the problem.
Bit of Stephen May about him, Logan.
We'll say that's not the problem from all the information that I've heard about him.
Yeah. Well, May and Prestia in hot water now as well. So,
fine.
Yeah.
That's what Chiefy was right on him. Very
well, yes, absolutely.
Punching up teammates, and then all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, look, great leadership from Prestia down at the Tigers too. Apparently, Tigers are they got so many great draft picks, and we got your pick, mate, and blah blah blah. Yeah. Well, your key forward's punching people, and Prestia's the meatball we thought he was. So, anyway, look, they can deal with their own problems, mate. Not as many down at North these days. So, good luck down there at Tigerland. All right, let's get into some player names and that sort of stuff that you have touted here. You name them, run me through them, and then we can have a little discussion about them.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'll start with I reckon we'll take one from one group, one from another. So the first group I'll go through is sort of your wingers and your taller inside, bigger body mids. So the one I'd like to sort of highlight that we're getting linked to a little bit, and they'd have to be a little bit of a slide, but I could see them landing at us, is Barker. He's a South Australian player. He's 188 centimetre. He's a winger. He can play a bit more defensively as well. He's got the I heard this described on Big Footy, which was hilarious, which is the tight Matt Riggio perm for his hair.
Fantastic. Well, you sold me.
It's very solid, that. It's very solid. He's got a very penetrating kick. He's very dangerous. He's got fairly... I said I always like penetration on kicks. He's got good versatility. He can sort of move through that middle. He's got 188 centimetres and the speed. My question mark's sort of on him. He's come off the ACL injury a bit more recently, and that's sort of why he's potentially sliding a little bit. I think he's one of the more exciting players in the draft for me. But obviously the ACL slowed him down. Contested work is not as high as it could be, I think, as well. Ground ball getting and, just impacts. But on the outside, and wingers to a large extent, you should be more of the outside as well, for my opinion. He's very
good size
over,
for a winger as well, though, 188.
188, yeah. Very strong overhead. He can mark well. He can contest extremely well in the air. He's got pretty decent pace and pretty good kick. So that's what I like about him. 188, I said the 188 centimetres parts is, you'll see a bit of a theme with the players that I'm looking at for us. That's one of them. He would have to be a bit of a slide, but if we got him there, that would be an absolute gem for us, I reckon.
Where do you think in the draft roughly he's going to go?
He could go anywhere from late first round, I reckon, like your sort of 16 onwards, I reckon, and he could land to us as well, which will probably be about 27, 28-ish by the time it all happens, I reckon. So, that's going to be the question. It's like if a side's willing to sort of take a punt on his body. He's a South Australian. I don't
We've got a lot of South Australians on the list.
Yeah, we've only got Powell at the moment, don't we? Or
I thought there was some more.
No, we've got a lot of WA guys. That's a big thing for us.
Oh, WA, man, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Fisher, Zerha, all those boys.
Yeah, great. But so I mean, we've got that sort of role for him. But I think he would fit in really well with our list and our list build and what we're trying to do.
Goad South Australian. Is that where I'm getting from? Maybe I'm thinking.
Goad is South Australian. Yeah, he is absolutely.
Was Finbar South Australian?
No. He's
he wasn't.
No, I think he might have actually. His dad played basketball as well. His dad was an NBL player.
I think. Hardeman is Hardeman Western Australian?
Hardeman's Western Australian.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So we got all the WA guys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's why we travel to Perth so well.
Yeah. So that's the one I really like. He takes on the play as well. He's just an exciting prospect.
Yeah.
If he isn't available at our pick, there's a couple of others here. There's Onley from where was he? He's playing from Murray. He's an inside mid. He's 195 centimeters. Got a lot of power, a lot of speed, strong overhead. He's that big-bodied one that I talk about being inside. I think he's got a bit of versatility. He's got the athleticism of like some of those. I mean, I'm not going to mention all those names, but any of those 190-plus centimeter mids, he's sort of got that athleticism. Question marks for me for him is sort of like I don't find him as aggressive as he should be at that size, and he doesn't body as much as that size as he should be given his height and size, which I like people with that natural aggression usually. But he's a good prospect in that area of the draft as well. Like there's things that you can train into him. His kicking's very, very good. I think he uses it both sides as well pretty okay is my understanding. He's a good watch. Like he's one, I said, you can noticeably see the size difference for him when he's in there. But yeah, 195 I think he is. So it's a scary big prospect in that middle area.
Yeah, it's a big
And
body.
that's something I think we've looked for a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great, that type of play would be a great get. It's something different on the list, and you're right, like, with a few years behind him, looking at some of the draft analysis here, I've seen he's needs to improve his competitiveness. I don't know if I've heard that one before in a draft sort of analysis. What do they mean by that?
I think it's like just the aggressive, for me, I'd probably say like aggressiveness around the ball. Like, he's a bit too placid in his attack at it. Like there's, like players that, like Banch, for example, like his competitiveness at the ball every single time. He's not going to take a back step. He's going to run at it. Same thing with like your Curtis and all those guys. Their aggression was so high. That was the big question mark at different stages during the year, I'd say, on Dill Stevens, where, he might shirk the contest when he should be going in.
Mate, tell that to him spoiling the ball from Sam Darcy.
No, I think he actually greatly, I don't think people gave Dill enough
this season just gone, he was much, much, much improved. Yeah. He put his head over the footy plenty of times.
Oh, 1,000%. He was really, and yet again, winger role. There's moments where you have to go.
It doesn't come natural to him, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't. And Robin Hansen Jr. is the other one I put into that category. If they don't have that natural aggression at the ball, they're sort of a bit more waiting for the game to come to them. And I'd put Onley at his size. It's a bit disappointing that he's not. If he was more in that and had that more aggression, he'd be a much higher pick. And that's because when you're getting players at our picks, this is where you're sort of going to be there's things that you have to train into there. But if he trains that into his game, he's a scary prospect.
I was going to ask, is that something you
athleticism.
think is easily trainable or easily I think on the surface, I think about it. I'm like, it's probably easier to train competitiveness or get that into someone than it is to make them kick straighter. You know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about that?
I tend to think it's strange. I tend to think the opposite.
Interesting. Okay.
I think you're born with that. Geordie Payne, regardless of what happened, he was aggressive. He has that mongrel. Will Dawson, you can see it. Will Dawson will knock people down because he wants to hurt them. That's last year, for example. Yeah, last year you looked at the one for me was Smiley. I reckon he would have been the top prospect if he had that more aggressive. That more aggression to come out. But and I think that's the similar issue for Onley is I just think he just misses that ability to be a bit more aggressive at his size than he could be. And as an inside mid, I'd like to see more of it.
Okay.
But I'd be happy if we talk him because I think there's really good tools and assets to work with for him to be a really good player as well.
Yeah, and no player especially around this point of the draft, but in general, no player's perfect, and
exactly.
Everyone's got something that they can improve on. And when we're looking at around the picks that we do have, I think you're right. There's always going to be things that we need to fix up with those players, but when you look at a raw attributes on the page, 195 centimeters, power, size, speed. We need that. And if that could come to fruition in the midfield, I think that would be great. And, it'd be exciting watching the twos for a guy like that. Imagine seeing a guy that size in the twos and he's had a few good games and, lines up at a centre bounce alongside Wardlaw or LDU or Shees. It'd be exciting.
Yeah, and he'll put on muscle and strength. He's got a great frame for it. And as he gets bigger and stronger, his tackle, his ability to get the ball out of the contest, is strong. But I always watch to see if they can get their hands above their tacklers. Something that McKercher does exceptionally well, and he did exceptionally well as a junior. For a smaller sized frame, his ability to get his arms free and always get that handball out is really, really high. Onley doesn't do that as well as a Colby, but Colby's probably had to develop that because of his size, where O'Reilly's usually just, or Onley's a bit more used to just powering his way through it because of strength. So it's a less technique, more brute force, but I think these skills are teachable. I think those aspects are teachable. The aggression I'd like to see turn up for him for what I want for us. But I'd be very happy with him at our pick at that stage.
Okay.
Yep. And the other one that I've got is Leray, 188 centimetre from Central. He's also a winger, also played in that very, very successful South Australian national champs side. They were very, very good this year. You'll see a lot of South Australians going this year, and probably rightfully so. They were a very good team. What did I have written him? Very versatile, very strong overhead, 188 centimetres, which is a good size again that I really like. Leadership capacity for him is really, really good. He was the South Australian under-19 captain for cricket as well, so dual sport.
Sounds like Blake Drury to me, mate. I think he was a leader too.
Drury was a leader until he, I think he did something in the Adelaide reserves as well, actually.
Well, yes.
But no, Leray's I actually don't view him as hugely different than a Barker. I think Barker I prefer much more just because I think he's got more X factor and wow about him, where Leray is a bit more, he's got that leadership quality. He's also got that, a bit more of a, how would I describe it, meat and potato game than a Barker for me. Yeah, the fundamentals are all there. He's good foot skills, kicks both sides, does everything really well. I think he's a very, very good player. Just Barker just tends to have a bit more X factor for me, and I think he does a lot of things really, really well, Barker. So that's the one I really want, obviously, in that position.
Yes, sounds like it, mate. You're convincing me.
Yeah, I really like him as a size in that. So that's the one that I'd most want, Barker. I'm not sure he slips to us, but if he's available at our pick and we don't take him, we've done something really wrong, I think.
Done something wrong.
Unless someone else has completely slipped as well, which is always a chance, I think.
Yeah, Cooper Duff Tyler slips down to 25.
Oh, God, I think one of the other boys had him slipping down to pick 9 and us trading for it. And I'm like, there is zero chance of that guy getting down there.
Imagine. We need to make a scandal or something like that. We need to set him up over the next couple of weeks so his draft stocks drop. Don't message me about that. If anyone has any ability to do that, do not message me. Keep this slate clean. Yes. Okay. If anything pops up in the next week with him, imagine the messages we're going to get. That's crazy.
Did you hear that he at the pub or
hanging out with Stephen May too much?
Training with Reece Matheson. Terrible. So that's probably our options at that first pick. There's a couple of others that I think would be there, but I'm probably going to put them to our next pick, so I prefer one of those guys there, or to our last pick that we'll take. to one of our yet again, it could go either order. This when we go into the more player focused on our key positions, which I think we'll take one of that first group, and I think we'll take another one of this group that I'm about to say. These are the key position players that I think might be available or would be good. Ludovic is the first one that I'll mention. 197 centimeters, Sandy, key position forward. He's actually a real slider from where he was expected to be last draft. He was one that I was a bit worried about when we traded out, that he would have an absolute monster season and would be losing out on him as a player. He hasn't shown for me the rate of improvement that I would like. He's had the PCL injury just towards the end of the season as well, but he does have a lot of really, really good assets. He's really, really agile. He leads extremely well. He's got a really fast 20-meter sprint. He's strong aerially, and he's fairly accurate. I think he's fairly similar to me to more like a Larky lead-up forward style one than a pack crusher. Which, we see that with Trent Barthwary's ability to sort of hit the packs and that aggression. Larky, I think, actually made some really good improvements this year in that space. This is the kind of improvements I'd want to see for Ludovic. But he's one that, if he's available, and I think he's starting to get more and more linked to us as well as a prospect, I really think there's a high chance we take him, and I think there's a high chance he's available for us as well, which is the combination of things that you want to hear, I guess, if you want him.
Yeah, would this be your sort of first pick out of the key position targets that you've got here? If there was all these key position players we're about to talk about, would that be the guy you think has the most upside for North Melbourne?
It's going to be always coming down to these things where you've got Ludovic, for me, is a fairly safer option. Like, he does the next player I'll go through, and I'll mention him now, is Emmett. Ludovic is the bread and butter, knows what to do, will come in, knows how to play football. Emmett is raw, but explosive. So, like, the way I'd almost do is, like, the draft when we had the choice between, I guess, Will Dawson and Ollie Murphy you could have talked about at the time, or Will Green and Taylor Goad. Goad was exceptionally raw, and Will Green was a much more accomplished and ready-made player. And Goad, now you can see, like, we drafted based on assets for Goad. That's why we drafted Goad. We didn't base it on he had upside in footy, obviously, but that's not why we drafted him. We drafted him because he's 208 centimeters. He's got an extremely fast 20-meter sprint. He can jump really well, and he can crumb the ball at his size. But his stats were, he was fairly raw player. You're starting to see that pay off, and it's going to take a couple of years. Emmett, which is the next one I'm going to go into, he's 199 centimeter, played for Oakley. He was a ruck/forward, sort of struggled to find a spot at the start, but has been fairly talented still. He's extremely aggressive. He'll throw his body into those packs. He'll hit that harder. What do I have him as? I've got him as really good over air, agility. His agility is sort of in the mark, like almost like a Luke Jackson. I think he's really I think he's a Geelong supporter, and he like Cameron is what I read on, I think, Rookie Me about him. But he's very, very versatile as well. He's very raw. I think his skills still need a fair bit of improvement. Like, he's kicking, I don't think his action looks particularly poor, but it's he's got a good kicking skill set. His kicking skill needs work. He's a natural. The way I've written down here as my note for myself is a natural athlete, not a natural footballer. So where I view Ludwig as a footballer, and he's very athletic as well, Ludwig, so I'm not going to undersell him, but Emmett's at another level to me for what he could be. So I think we're going to really be having a choice out of these two guys. And it's just a question of what we want to go for at that point.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, slightly less informed perspective than you, obviously, is like what I think North Melbourne need is more of a ready. I think the timeline we're on, I think we need more ready footballers at this point. And I look at a guy like Goad, who is going to be another few years away. Is Lewis Emmett someone who is of a similar mould, slightly different attributes, but a ruck, but can play more forward. Maybe Goad's more of a ruck, and we hope he can chop in the forward line compared to Emmett here, who's maybe a forward and can chop in the ruck. But, how much from where, and just in your opinion here, how much from your perspective should North be going for more raw upside players compared to maybe guys who, like you pointed out before with Archie Littlewick, who are maybe slightly more ready-made players? Because my initial thought off the top of my head is where North are at, we need guys who could potentially be 2 or 3 years away from being AFL footballers, not guys who are slightly more down the road. But does your opinion differ there?
A little bit. Like you sort of you don't want to be, because I mean, a lot of work will come in. I don't expect him to do a huge amount in his first year, but like by his second, third year, he's sort of got his right leading patterns, puts on body size, learn some of the craft is when you would expect him to come in. Emmett would be a bit of a longer time frame, but the upside's a lot higher. I mean, ideally they're sort of hitting their peak in, or not hitting their peak. Ideally they're starting to hit straps and start to ascending up their talent, I guess, in the next 2-3 years is when they're starting to play more senior footy. And that's probably true of all of them. The way I view our forward line at the moment is we've obviously got Larky, who's locked in there. We've got Darling, who's got 1-2 years, maybe 3 if we, are happy with him. Trembarth is still a project at this point. Whitlock will be the one that we're developing. Hopefully we keep him in one position. If we keep him as that forward, you'd be expecting maybe some games next year and starting to get some serious senior games the year after. And then outside of that, we don't have those players coming behind them anymore. CCJ, you could make an argument for, though the fans seem to have written him off fairly significantly at this point.
Redemption arc next year, baby.
There's a redemption arc happening for CCJ. I do have a slight bet with Mika about this one, so we'll...
Well, we can keep track of that on the podcast, mate, if you'd like. I'm very interested. I might get in on that bet, to be honest.
Could actually.
Whoa, settle down.
Yeah, but it's there's a few players. So when we're looking at the reserves, I like to see some players that we're going to be developing. And Emmett or a Ludwig is going to be sitting in that reserve spot with Whitlock learning that position is my hope for them. I mean, defensively wise as well. The last player I've gotten here, which I'm hoping falls to us, he's probably my favourite of the prospects.
Okay.
But I don't think he falls to us either, may I add. Is a guy, Threadgold. He's 194 centimetre key position defender. And I'll tell you my logic about this after.
Okay.
He's a great set of hands. He's a one-on-one defender. He will stop an individual. He's that one-on-one guy that Butts would be for us, but we're hoping to get, obviously, he'll take a couple of years, obviously, to get to that point, but the athleticism's there.
Version.
Yeah. I think he could come in a bit earlier than you'd expect just based on that he's going to be able to shut down someone one-on-one. He kicks like a defender to me. Like he's kicking and around the ball field just isn't as high, but I'm not opposed to that for our side. I just want someone as a defender that can just absolutely, can come on, go one-on-one and shut someone down and intercept at the right time. And I think he's the guy that can do that this draft. He's come from a bit further back and now he's sort of looking at probably going to that back half of the first round. If he falls to us, I would probably snap him up as my first priority out of the tools.
Okay.
The reason I say this as well, yet again, I go back to that theory of I want people in the reserves coming up behind those, and we've neglected our key positions for a while. The most ideal, best situation for us is that round one, it's Will Dawson, it's Charlie Comben, and probably Griffin Logue is that third. Yeah. Hopefully maybe a Gota as that other one, which leaves us in reserves, Aiden Core, Toby Pink, and I think that's about it in the reserves. So we don't have anyone necessarily developing behind them as that key position defender. We could use someone in that role, and there's no guarantees, obviously, on a Will Dawson, who I really quite like.
Did you say Aiden Core?
Yeah, Aiden Core and Toby Pink would be the ones left in the reserves. And unless you're going to play Matt Whitlock as a defender again, we don't have that other person defending behind.
I feel like we had, off the top of my head, I feel like we had more, but you're right. Yeah. We got rid of Callum Dawson and Whitlock went forward. So, yeah. Yeah.
If Whitlock stays back, then that's a different story. But I think he's going forward, and I think it's not unreasonable. If Threadgold fell to us, he would be the one developing in the seconds, probably with Whitlock, probably with Will Dawson for a little while. But there would be the guys that are going to come up and take those positions. I always want someone developing and someone, and the other players in the best 22. So you've got that rotation of talent happening. Like if something happens to, the other guys, you've got people to come in. So that's why I would quite look at that. I think we're a couple of key positions short. If we just happened to take like a Threadgold and Ludwig, just say they both were available and we took those back to back, I wouldn't, or Emmett and a Threadgold, or those, I wouldn't actually be opposed to that. I wouldn't hate that, because I think there's great ability there to just shore up those key positions. But I still think we're those wing/wing defenders / taller wings and that big-bodied inside mid, I think we could probably get a bit later on in the draft. But for what it is, I'm probably looking at those guys, and that's probably my priority at the moment.
Okay. So, we've gone through a lot of prospects here, and we've got a few more to talk about. 25 and 26, all these guys are sort of in that range. Who else, really quickly, do you have in that range? And I guess, what's our next pick? In the 40s, I think it was?
Yeah, in the 40s, I've got a couple
46,
of options.
57, yeah.
I won't go too much into it. Let's talk about a couple of names.
That's fine. But look, what other prospects have you got for those 25, 26? And then let's get to the next picks as well.
Yeah, well, 25, 26, I mean, then you're sort of looking at, I think a few of those players will be available for us to be able to take, and I reckon they're probably the players that we're taking at that stage. Other ones that you can sort of mention, I think there's a slight chance that either an Oscar Taylor or a Noah Hibbins-Hargraves potentially falls to that spot. Noah Hibbins-Hargraves a mid-forward, but very, very creative, and I think it might be a situation where he's just got too much talent to pass up at that point if he slid to that point.
Yeah.
And Oscar Taylor's a 182 centimetre back, smaller defenders type, a lot of pace, he absolutely blew the water in all of his combine testing for speed attributes and long distance, I think it was for him. So he's got a lot of good attributes about him as well, which, he'll be replacing Colby off that position, and long term probably a Caleb off that position, but might be a bit of a better defender long term is my hope. So you've got those are the probably ones that I think could slide down to us at that. Otherwise, we're starting to, probably reach a bit more again. So those are probably the two other names I'd add into that little group of players at that stage.
Yeah. Okay. So pick 46 and then 58, I believe it was that I read. Any sort of prospects you think we can get around there? And I guess you're predicting we might take 3 people. I mean, we've only got the 3 spots, right? So, we're probably not going to go past pick 48. What sort of players do you look at, before we get into the names exactly, what sort of players do you think we should be looking at with a pick like that? Because obviously you can be a little bit more speculative. You can take a few more punts when you get a little bit lower in the draft. So what sort of position... Say, hypothetically, we sort out our key positions, right? Or the bigger midfielder in there. Do you think if we don't get all that done in the first couple of picks, you can get some good players in those positions down at this point of the draft? Or are you purely going on raw potential?
It's not raw potential. You sort of go between the mix of, you'll get, Jack Marnie was a good example, strangely, of a player that when he got to that point, I don't think he was ever the most talented player. I mean, he had some very good games in the Coates Leagues, but he was very limited by his size and his athleticism and a few other, I didn't think he had the penetration on his kicks, which is something I really like to see. So you can either go for a player like that. Blake Drury, when we got him as a rookie as well, same thing. I think he captained the SA side or something. He has fairly good leadership skills, and he was quite a good player at that level. But yet again, he's got limited capacity. Or you take a big swing a lot of the time on someone who's, raw, but might have assets that you like to bring in, which is sort of I think you tend to look for in those positions. For us at that later pick, it'll depend on what we've done in those first picks. If we've gone back-to-back key position, which I don't think is impossible, but knowing Brady, he wants to really bring in a 177 centimetre someone.
Classic Brady.
It depends on what we've done. Just say, you've got a Threadgold and a Barker, which I'd be very, very happy with. Your next pick, you might be looking at, there's a guy, Armu, going around. Tarian Armu, I think his name is. He's a much taller key position forward in that mold with a few really good athletic traits and some strong hands. And you look at that and you're like, well, maybe we could bring him in, give him a couple of seasons and see how he looks. And that will fill out my wanting of, you can send someone in there and develop him for a while. But then just say you went, Ludwig and Threadgold, which would be a really interesting mix for us. Then you would be looking at, potentially a inside big body mid or winger, which I think we're probably likely to, potentially still just go another winger or a inside mid at that point. I think we're a bit smaller on a bit less in that midfield in the reserves than you would expect, which is a bit surprising. So it'll be interesting to see what we do there. The names I've got, just a couple of quick names to mention, I guess, for us is there's Rory Wright. A lot of the fans are really liking him at the moment. He's I've got him written down as 2 sizes here. I'm struggling to figure out which one it is. He looked a bit taller to me. I think he's 188, but a few other sites had him down as 183.
Yeah, I've got 183 up here for his scouting profile.
Yeah, and I think I've seen him at a few. I think 188 I've seen him, but like he plays pretty big in fairness. He's a tackling menace inside / defender as well. So you might potentially get like a, Barker and him, to be fair, where he can play off that halfback, be a bit more aggressive. He tackles really hard. He's prone to making a couple of mistakes and he looks a bit slower for my liking. But what else did I have? Really penetrating kick. His work rate's really good with his hands. I think he's got strong leadership attributes that I've seen with him on field and that. And he's not someone that drops his head when he makes a mistake, which is an important thing, I think. We've apparently done quite a few interviews with this guy, Dalton. Good player, Dalton. I think he was the captain of Sandy, I think he was, but he's 177 centimetre.
177 centimetre midfielder, mate. That's we can, all right, pod over. We have confirmed we are taking Jack Dalton.
Jack Dalton. Oh, you just know that Brady's going to want him. But apparently we've done a couple of interviews. He's got good attributes and assets, but for me, I wouldn't be particularly excited about taking him, though he probably in the Will Phillips mold. He's a good person, probably.
I'm sure, just like Jack Marnie and Blake Drury were.
Drury probably less so these days.
Well, yeah, that's true. On the surface.
And Darlitz was the other one. I think he's like a defender, mid-sized defender, 188 centimetres. I would like to get him at that spot, and I think he'll be available. Similar thing, just speed. I think he's pretty good kick. There's a few good assets to work with him. But yeah, so that's what you sort of look at. It's like, it's going to be interesting to see who we go for first and what's available. It'll be that first night. As I said, the first night, I don't see us necessarily trading into, but that second night, we're going to have a good couple of options to pick from. And a few, if we take a couple of those project key positions, I'd be really, really happy. If we got a slider and a Barker, I'd be exceptionally happy.
I'm looking at some of the profiles here, and even Tara Namu, the size of that guy compared to these other guys that we've talked about, he looks built for AFL football.
Yeah.
And if we fell slightly later in the draft, it's sort of saying here he could be just like a late second round pick as well. So, even if we got someone with a bit of size about him, we could train up and teach the game of AFL football. That's exciting stuff. So, yeah, look, you've convinced me on nearly all of them, mate, except for Jack Dalton. And good luck, Jack, in your AFL career. I'm not trying to.
No.
I'm going to look incredibly stupid if we draft him now. It's just if we're just replacing Will Phillips at that point. But hey, look, I guess
we need a Will Phillips on our list at the moment.
Yeah,
we don't have one anymore.
Draft, we don't have a Will Phillips. We could. He's a free agent. It's there's a lot. Look, there's a lot to go with there, and I think we're going to talk about this more. We'll do a couple of little North mock drafts and stuff and see what changes we've done before. As we know, Joel's going to predict every pick we make 100% accurately like he does every single year. But, it was Foss over Taru, mate, and you called it. So I think there's going to be a lot of North fans out there flat because we don't have a sexy top 5 pick and all that sort of stuff. And I've talked about this so much, but I still don't think the trade with Richmond is anywhere near as bad.
No,
and I think if anyone's got half a brain to look into anything above or below surface level, I think you'll understand why North Melbourne did it. It's very easy to sit back and say, North and North, so that's why they did it. But there is obviously a lot of reasoning behind it. On paper, it doesn't look good, but I do believe we've come out of last year's draft with a top 3 key position player from what would have been this year.
Yeah.
And we're at the point in our list cycle where we don't need just any talent like Richmond do. Richmond are years behind us, in the amount of talent or what talent they've accrued through the draft. So give a little bit of a spiel, Joel. I've talked about this a lot, but it's always interesting how we differ on some opinions here. Why is North in a good spot in this draft? And why is it okay for our future that we don't have a top 5 pick in this draft?
Well, first of all, the thing that people really get lost on is they focus too much on what the number of the pick is.
100%.
Yeah, and I love the draft. I'm a draft guy. But the number is a lot less important than the talent that's in the list. Like I think sometimes, and this is as a guy who loves the draft, we overrate draft picks value. A player, players that come in have a lot more. You can, like, if you get a player from the AFL system, for example, you know what the talent is, you know what they're going to do at an AFL level. There's been plenty of busts early on, and players that you don't think would ever not play. For us, when we traded out our future first, we brought in a guy that's a key position. He's on our timeline now of being able to come through with the group of players that we want to. We've got an extra 12 months on him. Like we talk about the players that we're going to take it, where's it at with our picks here, and they're all going to be like none of those players are going to play next year. They probably won't play the year after that. Where Whitlock, you're sort of looking at him.
If he breaks into the team next year, it wouldn't shock us.
Yeah, and year afterwards, he's you're hoping he's a lock-in best 22, which you can actually start to build and play around. Like that's the things you got to sort of look at. Like for me, and like Whitlock, when you looked at him as a junior, you can see him on the field. The guy's built like a like a twig. The poor fella at the moment.
Get him on the Will Dawson plan, mate.
Get him on the Will Dawson plan. Will Dawson put on massive strength and muscle, and like you'll see that with him happening over the next 12 months. And I didn't hate what we did with that. I think you can really justify that pick and that swap, and that was what the value was. In fairness, like other clubs had tried to move up, and we tried to move in earlier. There was a few interesting. It's going to be an interesting one to. It was actually a very fascinating draft to look back at to see where our offers were and some of the deals that we had in principle, depending on what players were falling and what was happening. But that's where it landed, and that's what the value was. And I was happy with it. And I'm like, if we had our pick this year, we'd be taking probably Xavier Taylor, who I quite like. He's 193 centimeters, I think he is, a little bit smaller, but Whitlock's got a lot of the same assets for me. Not as good, probably one-on-one defender, but then Whitlock, you're not sure what he is because he's so gifted as an athlete and so gifted as a 199 centimeter.
I was going to say he hits that 2 meter mark basically as well, which is makes him a different player than a 193 centimeter as well. Yeah. Like how many times have we had a good, like Toby Pink as an example? And I know his talent isn't maybe there of these top prospects, but if Toby Pink was 200 centimeters, mate, how good of a lockdown defender would he be? He'd be unreal. He's slightly undersized for that position, especially a lot of these over 2 meter players that are coming through now playing key forwards like your Darcys and whatnot. So, I'll always back, and I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, if anyone wants to look past the surface level with this, I think it's pretty obvious why North did it. And it really takes that risk away of just drafting another mid or medium-sized forward. And they're really talented, but where do they play? Almost like we've got with Dersma now. And look, if Dersma could be that bigger winger, that we've got, and he can bulk up a bit, fantastic. I'm a bit off him at the moment. I think he needs a massive preseason. He needs to prove to us next year that he's going to be an AFL. He could be an AFL player, but like he's going to be able to play in this team. And look, we're at the bottom of the ladder, mate. If he's not breaking into North Melbourne, there's questions to be asked. But the talent is undeniable. So I really hope he could take up that winger role. But yeah, look, I think there's lots to be excited about in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like, just say like, I mean, what the pick might look like, or what the trade might actually look like by the end of the this trade period would be. Richmond got, I reckon they're probably going to use it on a Sam Grill, who's a, smaller, I think he's almost like a tiny bit Wardlaw light, I'll call him. You've got him versus what we would take in Whitlock, and I reckon if Barker fell to that spot, if we had Whitlock and Barker or Grill choice, I'd be taking Whitlock and Barker, personally. And that's like, if you actually break it down to the names of the players and who you're taking, that's the kind of thing you'd be looking at.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. It's not about the number. The number is, the sexy thing on the outside that everyone goes, oh wow, look how attractive that is. Pick 6, pick 5, pick 3, whatever. But yeah, you're totally right. Every year that we know this draft isn't as deep as last year, and where Whitlock would have gone in this draft is arguably twice as high as he would, as he went last year, because last year was absolutely stacked. So, yeah, look, Richmond fans and just wider AFL fans can keep pretending that we made a stupid decision, but we know what's going on at our own club, so don't listen to any of those guys. And we understand that we've got a player in Matt Whitlock, and they can laugh all they want. I had a discussion with someone at the barbershop about this. I'm like, well, you kicked a goal against you guys in Tassie when we smacked you by 50. We didn't even have Larky. So you can keep chirping if you want, but your next Dusty Martin doesn't have any hamstrings. They made a Bible paper, and the other two blokes barely played for the year. So just because they got the yellow and black and the stripe across the chest doesn't mean they're going to be Dustin Martin, Jack Riewoldt, and Trent Cotchin guys. So you need to chill out a little bit. You can go back to where you belong, which was all the 2000s Richmond footy where Matthew Richardson was fun, but there was not much else behind that man. So you guys can sit down there and stay there as far as I'm concerned. We'll get you by 60 next year, and that will be very, very fun.
I think we'll bounce up next year, don't you worry.
I'm confident we will, mate. I know it's easy. Once again, and a lot of this Footy Fan Network stuff, I did a debate with the Richmond guy, and that will come out, in the future at some point. But,
I'm very curious to hear that one.
Well, yes, it's very it's interesting because I think it's so easy to sit on the outside for non-North Melbourne fans and look at us and go, whatever. But when you've got the amount of talent we do, you've got the coach that we do, and you're building something that only we can see at this point, all of a sudden, mate, in the next couple of years, we will move up that ladder, and then people are going to be saying, oh my God, where'd this come from? I always talk to people, and this is one of the points I made in that debate was, we talk about Shees, Wardlaw, McKercher, Foss. We're not talking about Dawson's. We're not talking about Hardemans. We're not talking about Goes. We're not talking about, even Paul Curtis is viewed as like a middle-aged player on our list. He's 21 years old. So it's like we've got so much talent here that because we're a small club and people just write us off, have no idea exist. And I understand it's been bad for the last few years, but we are genuinely building something. You can see the plan. You can see what they're trying to do. Yeah. You can see that there's focus. You can see that there's structure. And we can pretend Brady Rawlings is the worst person on the planet. But once again, yes, he's done some stupid things, but he's done plenty of good stuff as well. And I think every single list manager, bar Hawthorn, Geelong, Collingwood, every single fan base probably hates their list manager. Gold Coast and Sydney, you can, but with the academies, whatever. But you go around all the others, and I reckon everyone would be complaining about their list manager. So, look, I'm excited, Joel. You've pumped me up for the draft, which is really, really exciting. We'll be back, weekly up until the draft, basically talking about anything that's getting linked, all the latest news. We did have some rule changes in the AFL, but I'm thinking maybe we can touch on them next pod, just so this one doesn't go too long. Or look, we're at 56 minutes. Let's get it under an hour. So we might do a chat about the rule changes. They're not going anywhere. So we'll chat about the rule changes next pod, where there might not be quite as much to talk about. So stay tuned for that. But look, if you are still listening, thank you for tuning into Further North and staying stuck on this page all the time. Trying to come every single week with North stuff. We're going to go right up until after the AFLW Grand Final. Then I'm taking some weeks off because I deserve it, because I've been here so much. And I'm jaded, and it's fine. But I love North Melbourne, so this is why we do it. So look, if you are still here, please subscribe. A lot of people always ask, how can I support the show? I don't have merch out. I'm not asking anyone to do Patreons and stuff like that. The best way you can support this show is to follow and subscribe, like the videos, comment, and tell your mates about it. To be honest, the more people that view this, the more people interact with me and the bigger community we build. And I think that's a really, really cool thing. Look, the girls are on fire at the moment. Get down to the AFLW games. Last round this week. I think it's tomorrow in Frankston, I believe.
It's Frangie, It's Jazzy Garner's 100th game. There's been a lot of really good output by the club about all the different players sort of congratulating her and that.
Yeah, look, an absolute superstar. Maybe she gets her 100th goal in her 100th game. That'd be
great.
That'd be very, very exciting. But look, I just feel like we're going to win that, to be honest. So, look, next,
can't see us losing at the moment.
No, absolutely not, But we'll do a bit of a review of that game and a finals preview. Maybe middle of next week or something, because this will come out on the weekend. So, look. We'll be there, grand final bound. Hopefully this North Melbourne team, I'll absolutely be at that, and I'll be kangaroing behind the goals, which will be exciting. But Joel, any last words, mate? Anything to touch on before we head off?
No, just good to see Gap back in the side as well. So she's been announced. So I'm going to be happy for that. One of my favourites to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, her quickness down the wing is fantastic. Her decision-making is very, very good. I mean, we're getting some players back at the right time as well. But, and this is no disrespect to any player who got injured, it didn't really matter, mate, to be honest. We next man up sort of stuff, you know. Amy Gavin Mangan comes in and then it just is what it is, you know. We look like the same team. And
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know what they're doing down there, but geez, it's, you know, I'm praying for a dynasty here, and further north is going to be all over it. So look, get down to see the girls, get down to the finals when they're all happening. And look, if we are grand final bound, which, geez, if we're not, that's something's gone very, very wrong. Let's pack out Icon Park, which I'm assuming it will be at. And we're going to kanga the house down. But look, let's finish it up, Joel. Thank you very much, mate. We'll talk to you in a week or so.
Cheers. Thanks for having me, Josh.